Good morning. My name is Kelly Crisp, and I founded Child Performers Coalition in December. Since that time, I've tried using my background and experience to make sense of the proposed changes and the sweeping, game-changing effect they will have on the lives of child performers in New York's production economy. My background is an attorney, registered mediator, felony prosecutor specializing in sex crimes. I have also served as a state registered lobbyist. I have drafted legislation, testified in Judiciary Committee hearings, specifically working on child endangerment legislation and anti-female genital mutilation. Currently, I work with a large, well-known private equity group as a strategic communications consultant. I attended high school for performing arts. My 11-year-old son is a working actor here in New York City. My 13-year-old daughter is in music theater. I have read all of the Department of Labor documents, the old law, the proposed changes. I have drafted 6 position statements and 5 spreadsheets comparing the old law and the new law. I have reviewed the videotape of the Child Performers Advisory Committee hearings. I suggest you all do the same. I have come to the conclusion that if you understood the industry, you would not have drafted the rules the way you did. The rules endanger children and are certain to drive productions away from the state. What you have done in your rules is to take a leap of faith that all productions are the same, that film, television, theater, even reality TV can all fit within the same box. They cannot. It's like this. A bicycle, a car, and a train will all get you to where you want to go, but they are different animals. In fact, reality TV is so far distinct and has other protections through social services that they shouldn't have been included at all. Defining reality TV kids as child performers will have huge ramifications on the entertainment industry. Each industry has specialized needs and restrictions and must be treated differently. To say otherwise is to not understand production. And if you don't understand the industry you're regulating, then don't regulate the industry. You could have spoken to the mayor's office on film, theater, and broadcasting, and they could have explained this to you, but you didn't. I was the person that called Bloomberg's office. The single most dangerous provision in your rule will make New York the most dangerous place in the country for children to work. Deals with an employer's discretion to deny a 6-year-old child sight and sound monitoring by her parent. The best way I can describe this is what you're doing is asking a parent to walk to Times Square and hand her 6-year-old child off to a stranger for the day. I prosecuted child sex offenders. The consequences will be devastating. I cannot stress this enough. Pedophiles need access to children to satisfy a basic instinct, the need to have sex. Pedophiles love child performers, and everyone in this room knows that. And now you're asking an unvetted, employer-selected, responsible person to have unlimited, unsupervised access to kids. Can you imagine the conversation with little Sally? Mommy is going to have to go away now, and this is Dave. Dave is going to take care of you for the day. Do what he says. Did it ever dawn on you to include children during your conversations with industry representatives? I wonder if you were drafting rules to change the working conditions of steelworkers, dock workers, police officers, sanitation workers, that you would do so without speaking to them. But kids are different because they can't vote, can't organize, and don't have any money to contribute to a political campaign. In fact, you scheduled all 3 hearings when most children were in school. So what did I learn as I watched the 2 Child Performer Advisory Board meetings? As a member of the bar, I was disgusted. As a parent, I was outraged. I learned that no one in the room, not the governor's office, 2 Department of Labor attorneys, the clinicians, and the few industry representatives thought kids were important enough to read the rule that is currently in place. How do I know this? Everyone in the room believed they were amending a certificate that was already mandated. Health certificates are not part of the current permitting process. The board was created to somehow prevent eating disorders. Adopting a mental and physical mental health physician certificate is not mandated. So whether a certificate should be required was never debated. I learned that everyone in the room believed privacy issues like HIPAA were resolved as a result of this failure. The governor's office said, of course, this doesn't violate HIPAA because the kids are already submitting a health certificate and we are just amending the process. All of my comments will be on our website. I learned there was lots of shouting and arm waving when the board members, most of who were there to regulate the child modeling industry, realized the Department of Education regulated models, not labor. If the DOL cared about protecting models, it would have amended the law so that it regulates models as well as child performers. But they didn't do that either.
Please
Why?
finish up.
Why? Because the DOL attorney explained no one asked us to.
Concluding sentence.
I'd like to extend my remarks as well. So I was able to, the MPAA was able to.
I will
Take my number.
Thank you.
Well, in the interest of ensuring that as many people get to speak as possible,
We don't need as many people to speak as
Okay.
possible.
She's
We need
very
the
powerful.
people who really are powerful.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, we'll
she's
let
saying
people,
all
we'll
my
let one,
thoughts.
okay, well, we'll let one person devote their time so that no one speaks for more than 10 minutes.
Okay.
And again, if we have extra time at the end, before 1, we can certainly accommodate more.
Thank you. I learned who proposed that female performer menstrual cycles will be monitored. I learned that labor realized they were making pediatricians the gatekeepers to a child's ability to perform and to work. The labor attorney said that all a physician who suspects an eating disorder has to do is call her office and they will yank the kid's permit. On my own, I learned that the American Academy of Pediatrics just released a study on kids and eating disorders in their December journal. It never mentions actors, not once. In fact, it does conclude that eating disorders have a genetic foundation. I learned that not one board member was a pediatrician. Labor never included the American Academy of Pediatrics in any discussions. They have my briefs now, as does the Judiciary Committee, as does the Department of Health, and a number of other officials. I learned that there was no study about the cost of these evaluations. It was briefly discussed by a few and then dropped. So now the same attorneys that didn't know a health certificate wasn't a requirement, the same attorneys that didn't know that permits were every 6 months and not once a year, who have never been on set, who have never talked to a single child performer, set out to draft language that goes beyond the Child Performers Advisory Board mandate, which was the prevention of eating disorders. So they talked to folks to figure out what to include in the rest of the rules. Although I don't have time to explain in my remarks, labor knows my concerns. I've submitted many emails. The folks they talked to changed the game to benefit themselves. That's what happened on the education mandates that jacks up the cost for production. That's what happened on the allowance for group permits. That's what happened on the responsible person provision. Labor didn't talk to anyone about fixing the trust accounts, and they made the provisions worse, not better. Child performers work incredibly hard and yet make very little money, and most never break even. So why do child performers do it? It's their thing, like football is another kid's thing. Why do their parents do it? Because it's their kid's thing. The distinction being that child performers are subjected to an amazing amount of public scrutiny, and if the Department of Labor has their way, they will be treated like a freak show. To all that I've read, heard, witnessed over these last few weeks, are you kidding me? Is this how the state of New York does business? A deceptive, disingenuous process racked with covert communications, restricted access, and tactics bent on bullying and misleading child performers in an industry that New York and New York City has fought hard to keep. The process highlights the need for more inclusion and dialogue between affected groups and rule makers. Mr. Shapiro of the Department of Labor has refused to speak with me, and he has refused to speak with Ann Henry. It also highlights the need for greater oversight by the Governor's Office of Regulatory Reform to stop an incompetent process from proceeding forward. Child Performers Coalition will continue to work towards a healthy rule, one that promotes New York production and protects child performers. I ask that the rule be tabled immediately. By law, they should not proceed forward because the foundation was not set. My comments will be on our website, childperformerscoalition.org. Thank you.